Maulana Ubaidullah had been caught, with letters revealing a plot to overthrow the British Empire. The plan? To ally with Islamic nations from around the world and launch an uprising against the British. Around 100 years later, he and others like him were honoured by India's president for their anti-colonial efforts. He was part of the Sill Letter Movement, which then President Shri Pranab Mukherjee described as a glorious chapter of India's history of freedom struggle, which truly reflected the multicultural and multifaceted dimension of that struggle. But what was the Sill Letter Movement? Following a quashed uprising against the British East India Company in 1857, and increasing colonial controls on education, some Muslims started to set up seminaries in order to protect traditional Islamic values from British interference. The most successful of these was around 150 kilometers north of Delhi, in a town called Deoband, established in 1867. The ever-suspicious British Empire sent spies to infiltrate its classes, but reported nothing of interest until 1915, when evidence came to light of a change in attitude, which reached the top, including its president Maulana Mahmud al-Hassan. A year later, Maulana Ubaidullah Sindhi, a Sikh convert to Islam, had been caught with 3 silk letters in the lining of his coat. A group is to liberate India. This group has moved to establish centres in India to make alliances with other powers. Another group, called Al-Janut al-Rabbaniya, is a special Islamic assembly based on military principles. Its first object is to create an alliance amongst Islamic kings. This is the only way of inflicting an effective blow against the infidels of India. The plan was to send envoys to both Islamic powers and Britain's World War I enemies to invite them to join in the struggle against British rule. At the onset of the First World War, Maulana Ubaidullah, Maulana Mahmud al-Hassan and other key figures of Deoband left India to seek alliances with Afghanistan, Germany and the Ottoman Empire. Letters described how Maulana Mahmud al-Hassan would be a military general with subordinates in Tehran, Kabul and Istanbul, and eventually India itself, which Hassan later denied when captured in Mecca and interrogated in Cairo. When Maulana Ubaidullah's letters were first discovered in British-ruled Multan, they were described as childish rot by Sir Michael Francis O'Dwyer, the governor of Punjab, but the Department of Criminal Intelligence in India thought that they were much more serious. British officials produced thousands of pages of analysis, attempting to understand the significance of the letters for the future of British rule. The objects of the conspiracy to wage war, to attempt to wage war, and to abet the waging of war against the forces of His Majesty, or to dispossess His Majesty of the sovereignty of India, were to be effected by exciting religious fanaticism among the Mohammedans of India, by perverted teaching from the Quran, and in other ways by stirring up hatred against the British government among the frontier tribes in Afghanistan, by seeking warlike assistance from the Turkish Empire and by collecting funds for these ends. After the discovery of the conspiracy, key Deoband figures, including Maulana Mahmud al-Hassan, were arrested and deported to Malta until the end of the First World War, the British fearing a backlash if they were to be imprisoned in India. The story of the Sill Letter Movement highlights the British Empire's long history of viewing its Muslim subjects as fanatical. But India's 2013 commemorative Sill Letter Movement postage stamps showcased a different view of the affair, one of celebration of the movement as part of a struggle against an oppressive regime and as a nationalist contribution to Indian independence.